dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Story 1. It's heartbreaking to hear about so many people who were assaulted as children and feel they have no choice but to hide it so it doesn't cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other loved ones. Just want to let all of you affected know that if you did this publicly, you are not the cause of any conflict, no matter how someone describes it. You have become the victim of one of the most disgusting things that one person can do to another. The source of the conflict is with the one who committed the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours. Story 2. This is not my secret, but my mother's, and I do not hide it from everyone, but only from the person for whom it is potentially the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a serious long-term boyfriend named Jimmy. They were for each other for the first time. They had been together for years, and they were planning to get married. He went off to college. My mom stayed, but they were still together. You know what happened next? He cheated and got pregnant from a new girlfriend. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Deprivation was not legal at the time. Basically, he says he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry another girl. My mother was devastated. Here's the secret. My mom was also pregnant by him, but she hadn't told him yet. She decided she would never tell him. Jimmy married another girl and never knew my mom was pregnant too. She told me she later threw herself down the stairs to induce a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy in the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account but asked me to look for one using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They texted each other for a while. Using my account, signed their messages with the words, "I love you." My mother died a few years ago. I think about the knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This is a big life event that he doesn't even know about. It could change the trajectory of many lives. I definitely won't tell him. This is not my secret. Edit. There seems to be a part of the story that I didn't make clear enough. My mother had a miscarriage, and I never had a baby. It was an intentional miscarriage when she threw herself down the stairs. Jimmy is not my father. Story 3. My wife, her mother, and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors, I realized that the family that lived here before had a daughter who got mixed up with the wrong people. Some random person knocked on our door at night, saying he needed gas. We're on a long driveway. No way you come to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for people who used to live here, and then another Sunday morning, making pancakes for the family. I knock on the door, and 4 sheriff's officers say they got a 911 call. What the hell? And it was from the house. We don't have a landline. And I assured them my wife and 2-year-old didn't call. They mentioned the name of the previous occupants, and I told them we moved earlier this year, and they seemed to agree and left. Anyway, I was working in the yard and struck up a conversation with the neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what happened. I told him the situation, and he just said, "Oh yeah, that family was in a mess. The cops were probably careful considering the shooting." "What shooting?" I ask. He looks at me with a sad, worried face. "Shooting at your house." Wait for me to say, really confused. He then proceeds to tell me that in about 2 years before the father in the house faced he didn't like his daughter and boyfriend, and he left the boyfriend in the house. We don't have a whistleblower law in our state, so we never knew. I was amazed. All the strange happenings now made sense. He said the victim's friends had been terrorizing them for a while because it took the police so long to press charges, cutting the tears, midnight fireworks, a strange cow that the neighbors hated. I was shocked, but just said, "This is crazy, but do me a favor and never tell my wife or MIL. They're a little freaked out by stuff like that." So TRDL is that we live in a house of murders, and I'm the only one in my family who knows it. Story 4. My PTSD is not getting better. Every night I dream of an industrial accident in which I was involved. I see my colleague tear off his burnt face every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. It doesn't scare me so much anymore. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel a huge amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm awake, I hear his cry from afar, and it turns my blood to ice. Therapy did little. Story 5. I found the adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mother, I just never had a relationship. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me. I just knew I lived with her once, telling her once that I didn't want to come home LOL. I also found a letter my mother wrote explaining why she was disowning me. It really hurts. Edit. I didn't expect so many upvotes. Honestly, LOL, thanks everyone for the kind words. My grandma is truly the sweetest person, and I'm forever grateful for her. But I just wanted to say that now that I'm older, I understand why my mom did what she did, and believe it or not, we have a genuine relationship, LOL edit 2. This brought back some anxious feelings. I thought I was done LOL, but I want to thank you guys for your stories and kind words. They made me realize that I'm not the only one who had a rough childhood, and I shouldn't let it stop me from healing and being the best that I can be. It was one of the worst years of my life. I suffered loss after loss, and to be honest, I felt like I wasn't living myself. I kept coming back to read the comments, and I could see how strong everyone was and didn't let what they went through stop them from doing better. So I just wanted to say that I've made an appointment to start therapy again, and I'm going to be completely honest about how I really feel and open up more. Thank you so much, Red. Also, I haven't been the best granddaughter lately, so I'm spending more time with Grandma and helping her with whatever she needs. Story 6. My grandmother was in a car accident and broke her ankle, so she stayed at my house, and we took care of her while she recovered. At the time, I was entering puberty and discovered that you could order banned pictures on cable, and I looked like a crazy person ordering illegal pictures. The bill that month was $500. My mom thought it was my grandma because her novels were on channel 50, 60, and the banned pictures were 500, 600 fo. Until this day, I literally told no one. ETA. I'm Hispanic and intimacy. No photos for women is still taboo in my culture, so I'm so afraid to tell anyone. Even though my mom and I are pretty open with each other, I'm still embarrassed. However, my grandmother passed away in 2019 year, and I felt the need to tell my secret, but my mom sees this story as a funny memory of my grandmother that she likes to look back on and laugh about. Story 7. It's not a big secret compared to some of these answers, but I often feel guilty about it. After the death of my fiancé, I slept all the time for more than a year. One day my aunt called me and I just ignored her call and went back to sleep. It was my aunt because my grandmother, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday the day before my birthday. The next day, my grandmother died. I had to pick up the phone. Story 8. I was a very good kid in high school. A straight A student who loved homework, stayed out of trouble, and was quiet during class. Anyway, there was this guy who was also in AP class with me, but he was extremely loud and obnoxious. But he did such stunts that he had some reserve of plausible deniability. Although we never spoke, I'm not sure he even knew I existed, he rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was from one cold day when this other girl in our class had a ball go through her shirt. BC. She forgot her sweater and he kept it for her, saying, "Yeah, it's cold, huh?" Maybe it was from when he pretended to be friends with a kid who was definitely a spectrum and was desperate to be friends with him so he could do homework for the bully and then bully him the next day. EDK. So at random, sometimes once a week or a month or once every couple of months, I whistled. It's a high-pitched, kettle-like whistle that I can make while barely moving my mouth. At the time, no one knew I could do it except my family. The super obnoxious guy was always getting into trouble. I was never suspected. Story 9. My wife and I are not officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything. A reception. As many as 9 yards. It's just that we never dealt with official documents. We realized that since she's going back to school, it is beneficial for her to receive financial aid as single rather than married. When she's done, we'll go to the town hall and complete the last step. Story 10. I was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had, in my opinion, a wonderful, easy marriage. Our 5-year-old daughter once told me that he was ordering her to have oral with him. I was shocked, devastated, and scared. He was one of those fun guys that everyone loved to be around. I immediately called the police, and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. That time, he only got a slap on the wrist because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was the governor of the state in which we lived. I was so embarrassed that I told our friends that he was having an affair and left. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and was a mother for the next 15 years. Paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then, when she went to college, he reached out to her on Facebook. When I saw her talking to him, I was shocked, devastated, and scared again. I called and told her she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he wasn't safe. She came at me to the sky and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I sent her $40,000 a year to pay for her medical school. It was all almost unbelievable. Thanks for letting me share it here. Story 11. In high school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you shouldn't inhale copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepfather took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for being physically abusive, so I never said anything. 30 years later, he was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's and probably only had a few years left to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think that the copper pipe played a part in his illness as karma for being an unpleasant person. Story 12. I think I'm starting to lose my mind. Lately, I've been having a hard time remembering things I've known for years. Sometimes when people talk to me, their words just don't make sense to me when everyone else seems to get it. I've become super paranoid. I have an extremely hard time concentrating, and I find it increasingly difficult to talk to people. I'm kind of scared at it. I'm only 26. I've never had COVID. Story 13. One of my closest colleagues, who is an integral part of our large corporation, fired a man who was a teenager and dumped the body in a lake. He went down only on the technical part. I work remotely, so I don't build many personal relationships with the people I work with on a regular basis. I Googled his full name. At first it scared me, but I got over it a bit. I wonder if anyone else knows. This happened 40+ years ago. He will be retiring soon, and then I can ask another colleague about it. I just don't want to mix the candy. Story 14. The only person in my life who knows this story is my husband. When I was 8, I was desperate to be liked by the older boys on the street. I was the youngest boy, apart from a baby or two, on the block, so I rarely got to play with the boys. When an older guy, 19 years old high school, noticed me, I was thrilled. He, I'll call him Mike, saw me riding my bike up and down the street while he was playing basketball with his friend, who I'll call Sean. Together they stopped me and talked to me about school, my bike, and another random cow. Then Mike invited me to the circle. Since my parents didn't often keep soda in the house, this was a treat. Once inside, holding my can of cola, Mike and Sean began to shift the conversation to things I didn't understand. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about, but I remember a lot of questions about my body, my banana, if I had an erection, and if I had ever seen an older boy's banana. This resulted in them taking off their pants and urging me to do the same. I didn't want to, but Mike knew I was an insecure little kid. He turned on the manipulation. Oh well, I thought you were cool, Faustus. It seems not. I don't hang out with guys who aren't hot. Such a cow. From that point on, I did what they asked for fear of being uncool and not having older guys to talk to anymore. They only made me touch them that day. But for a few months after that, until Mike went off to college, they used me. Most of the time it was just Mike. About half the time, though, Sean was involved. He seemed less enthusiastic about attacking me than Mike. Without going into details, if you can imagine anything close to what a 19-year-old could do to an 8-year-old, he did it to me. The weirdest thing about it all was that I hated it while it was happening. I missed it when it was over. I felt special when Mike invited me to his home. When he left for college, and when Sean completely ignored me after Mike left, I felt alone and useless again. I never told my parents. To this day, over 30 years after the fact, they don't know it happened. Mike and Sean never faced any consequences for what they did to me. Although, in fairness, Mike did go to prison about 10 years ago for the same thing he did to another boy. There's probably more to it than just that guy and me, but at least he got caught for hurting someone. Story 15. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my mom and dad fought almost every day. Well, I was dozing on the couch when my mom came in really upset and shook me awake. She asked me if I could see the girl my dad brought home. I always felt terrible about it, BC. I haven't seen anyone but my dad all day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual. But somehow in my sleepy kid brain I said yes. I said she was with him in their room. I honestly don't know why I lied like that, but they broke up soon after and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out that my younger sister is actually my half-sister. But that's a whole other story. Edit. To clarify, my dad cheated on my mom's sister, and my mom cheated on one of their friends to get back at him. She thought he was cheating with another girl, but later found out it was my aunt. To be honest, their relationship was on the way out. Now I don't feel bad about it since we found out a few years ago that my younger sister is my half-sister because of an affair my mom had. Story 16. I'm living with my mom right now because she's going there because of cancer, but honestly I can't wait for her to go. It sounds terrible, but I'd rather see her go than see her suffer more. It's not that I want anything from her will. It's more like it sucks because she's always in pain and it hurts me to see her like that. Edit. Thanks everyone for your replies. I felt so alone in this for a long time. She's still fighting a long battle, but it's getting worse every day. I appreciate the help everyone has offered. It really helps a lot. Thank you. Story 17. This first part isn't exactly dark, but when I was a kid, about 9 years old, my cousin, who was 12 at the time, made love with me. I didn't know any better at that age, but I thought I'd get in trouble if I talked about it. For some reason, it was about 6 years before I saw him again, and ... it was never mentioned. Never remembered. He was like a completely different person. Sometimes I wonder if it even happened. My memory is not very reliable, and it was so long ago. I'm in my 20s. Fast forward a bit, and I found out he died a couple of years ago while cleaning a rifle. Accidentally myself. My great-aunt, who is his grandmother and who essentially raised him, sincerely believes it was an accident. But I suspect it is not. He grew up around guns and knew how they worked, how to empty them and everything else. I think the likelihood that he accidentally forgot to empty the chamber is pretty low. I also know he has struggled with depression and brain damage from a car accident a year ago. But I won't tell my aunt anything about it. I think it would break her heart. Edit. Regarding the first part, I'm not really sure how I feel about it right now. It's just what happened. I struggled with some weird negative emotions about it for a while. But it's so far in the past, and I live half a country away that it's easier for me to just not think about it. As for the second, I know that accidentally shooting yourself is more common than it seems, but I have every reason to believe that it was End. I don't want to go into details, but the year before that, he had been in a serious accident that left him with brain damage, and it messed up a lot of his goals in life. Plus the depression he was dealing with and other factors. I think it was End. I hope that is not the case. Story 18. Everyone in my family teases me about the fact that I don't want to date girls anymore and think I'm weird or a boy. But I lost my girlfriend with whom I could live well with her. She took it, and I never talk about it with them. I know I can talk to some of my family, but my parents are different. Edit. Thank you guys so much for your kindness, but I don't want to discuss this with anyone right now. This will lead to some flashbacks that will make me more depressed than before. Story 19. My uncle had an old Camaro gathering dust in his garage. When I was about 10 years old, my family and I were in town visiting, and I wrote the word fudge in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb to make the letters thicker than my normal index finger. A few hours later, my aunt-uncle asked us who did it, and I proved it wasn't me by showing that the person who did it had bigger fingers than me. I'm taking that cow to my grave. Edit. It blew up. I'm 33 now, and the whole family knows it was me for sure. It's an inside joke now that someone tries to get me to admit it, and I never will. Story 20. I was complicit in the infidelity of both parents. When I was 5, my mom cheated on my dad when he was deployed, and my brother told me what was going on and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for several years, and even took me on a date with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He brought me to her house, and her roommate watched me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They are still married. I don't know if they know the other did it or if they still do it. Edit. For everyone saying that maybe they're in an open or political relationship, sure, maybe they are, but I doubt it given their views on pretty much everything. Also, if they were in one of those, they should have explained it to us instead of sneaking up and telling us not to tell the other parent, and maybe not bring your kid on a date. So, yes, maybe they were, but if they were, IMO their behavior goes from bad for getting their kids involved in their infidelity to poor for getting their kids involved in a lifestyle without explaining it to them and making their children think they are cheating on each other. Story 21. That I didn't finish college. I failed one course in my last year, second semester. The ceremony had already been prepared, so everyone was allowed to go. I did not have a diploma in the award. No one knows to this day, and 17 years have passed. Failed one course, 3 credits. I was embarrassed, so I never went back for those 3 credits. That's why everyone thinks I've graduated. Edit. Holy cow, got a lot of replies on this. Working now, but we'll get back to everyone as soon as I can. Edit 2. Still working on getting back to everyone. I can't believe that so many people have gone through the same situation as me. I thought there might be a handful of people. You are all great, and I appreciate all the advice. It literally changed my perspective on several things. Thank you all for the information, resources, and most of all your personal experiences. Story 22. A funny light story from childhood. My younger brother was in the shower. I heard him singing. I put my coat on backwards, pulled my stocking cap over my face, and waited by the bathroom door. He opened the door, still singing and kind of dancing, and I did the Frankenstein thing. Hands to the sides, moan, He screamed and fell backwards, completely overturning the toilet. Water went everywhere. The top of the toilet broke, the shower curtain came off, and he was lying on the floor in the middle of it all. I ran back into the hallway, coat and hat, and casually strolled back. By then, my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone looked like, you know what the hell. I heard him tell this story as proof of ghosts. To this day, now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 children, he believes in ghosts. I'm not bad at all. Story 23. A pest control technician is here. You're paying too much for pest control. No matter who you hire, unless it's a small enough company, they will rip you off. If you don't have cockroaches or bugs, YouTube. These are quite difficult times. Edit. Thanks for the rewards, guys. I get a lot of pest control questions in my inbox. I doubt I'll have time to answer them all, but R Pest Control is a great subreddit to help you identify pests and offer solutions. Story 24. Cutting my dad off was the best decision I ever made. I hope he doesn't know how his only child and only grandchild live every day. I tried for years to have a relationship with him from 10 to 18 years old. From age 10 to 13, he told me he wished I died when I was sick in kindergarten because I wouldn't talk and ruin his marriage to my mom. I have tried several times with no success. I still tried to maintain a relationship with him for my mom's sake, to help her financially, and visited him for months. At the age of 14, he kept me locked in a closet for hours. At 16, 18, he thought that throwing money around would help me, but I was already working by then, and it didn't matter. I still have my daily struggle of asking myself if he is right or wrong. But I see my child, and I can't imagine thinking such vile things about them at that age as my dad does about me. Story 25. I was drinking with my ex in her room when I was 19. She was 23. Suddenly I started seeing images of my uncle, who died when I was 13, in my grandmother's bathroom. He showed me to the shower and told me to touch his banana. I felt like I was 5 years old when I saw it. Luckily, my ex was really great and understood that I was having a full-blown anxiety attack at the time. I held my knees, rocking back and forth, eyes closed. She asked me what was going on, and I was able to dictate what I was seeing. I was probably in the best place for that to happen. I still don't know what it was. I don't know if it was real or something my drunken brain made up. Almost 10 years have passed since then. Story 26. I was an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day every day, before work, at work, and after work. Every now and then I would fall asleep during my lunch break or leave work and had to make up for the illness to worried friends and family. Today marks 185 days of sobriety. Edit. Holy smokes. You guys made my day. I had no idea it would be so popular. Thank you all very much for the kind words. And if you're reading this and you're struggling right now, don't give up. Better days are ahead. Story 27. My grandmother has dementia. She's been dying for many years. The woman she was before had completely disappeared. My grandfather still makes sure she's there, talks to her, tells us he thinks she's getting better. She doesn't, and he's deceiving himself. She no longer laughs, does not remember anyone's names, and hardly eats. In my eyes, she is already dead. Still alive for everyone else. I wish this shell of her would go away so I could remember her as she really was and not have to watch my grandfather or the rest of my family fool themselves. Story 28. When my grandfather was on his deathbed, he admitted that he killed the Marines in the Vietnam War for torturing and assaulting young girls. Most of our family doesn't know. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up LOL. Thanks for all the awards. My grandfather was a very cool guy, very calm and gentle, so my mother and I were shocked when he admitted this to us. He had been a gunsmith all his life and took great pride in being a Marine, but the guilt he carried from the war made him believe that he would eventually be punished. He died a truly painful and traumatic death that I would never wish on anyone. I hope it makes it easier for him to rest in peace that most of you approve of what he did. I certainly never doubted that. Story 29. NSFW warning. That I'm addicted to methamphetamines and intimate relationships, and I'm a boy. I used to be addicted only to connections and intimacy. But when the pandemic started, social isolation forced me to try chemical intimacy, specifically methamphetamine. My friends and family don't know about my attractiveness, let alone my struggle with addiction. They see me as a hale and hearty guy as I am the breadwinner, and I can say that I am quite responsible and reliable. During my addiction period, I was able to find a new job, promotion, so no one really suspected. Because of my chemical addiction, I had many risky encounters and contracted all kinds of STDs. I was on Pre-P to protect me from HIV, But I got gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, and worst of all, anal warts. My anal warts required surgery, and I think it was one of the worst moments of my life. I had to go to the operation myself. I didn't tell anyone about it and had to endure the pre-operative and post-operative recovery myself. I thought I would change after all this, but even after the surgery I relapsed a few times. It actually made my anal canal tight, which the doctor said would be permanent, so now I can't have anal intimacy. Part of me regrets the surgery, not knowing it could happen, and another part is grateful that at least I can no longer have risky relationships. Story 30. I have 2 children whom I love with all my heart. My son is my oldest, and he is such a kind soul. Many people know that he is from a past relationship. But my daughter, many people think that she is my partner's. But I was attacked 2 months before meeting my partner. So when people see us together and calculate our relationship and her age, they laugh and say, "Oh, how cute." Only our family knows. The secret must go to the grave. I mean, how do you tell your only daughter that she was the result of an assault? Story 31. My goddamn depression didn't go away. I just accepted that I would have to wait to die a natural death because it would scar my family and most of the people who know me for life. Ed, I appreciate all the support, and I'm glad for those who find comfort in knowing that they are not alone in feeling this way. FAQ. No, it's not a passive idea about heaven, as I've tried twice before and still have active thoughts sometimes. Yes, I'm in therapy and have tried medication, exercise, etc. No, I don't want to try microdosing psychoactive substances as I have psychotic depression, meaning I'm prone to hallucinating, etc. if pushed. Story 32. My son will never know how much I hate his idiot friend next door. The kid is legitimately stupid and so cocky, which is even worse. Edit. Since I got a lot of upvotes, let me elaborate. He's not a bad kid. He's not mean or a troll or anything. He just doesn't have the common sense or ability to do the simplest of tasks. He talks all the time, and when he does, it's either about nothing or just a bunch of misinformation. And he never leaves me alone unless I'm a little tight and short with him. My child is several years younger than him and has more intelligence. I feel like I can leave my child home alone for 30 minutes if needed. I felt like if I left this kid alone for just 10 minutes, he would break something out of sheer idiocy. Story 33. I love my children very much, but sometimes I hate being a father. I really miss my pre-kid life, and I hate to say it because I have really great kids. There are just a lot of them. Edit. Thanks, man. So much scrolling. I'm in tears now. I honestly felt so alone for so long because when I tried to talk about it with my loved ones, I was just judged badly, and I just really appreciate you understanding, relating to me, sharing your experiences, advice, and words of encouragement. It means so much that I'm not alone in this. Because I really love my kids so much, and I would do absolutely anything for them. Sometimes being a parent is so hard. Thanks again, guys. Story 34. When I was 10, I was the victim of serial child molestation. A teacher, a woman, and no one believed me. This is an important detail as to why I did what I will do later. A few years ago, I saw her while shopping. First, I was afraid. Then I realized that I am not 10 anymore. I was 25 years old, a grown man. I became angry. I followed her for weeks, saw her working as a teacher, and found her on social media anyway. Went to the Cougar FB dating group she was in. I learned that since losing me as her pet, she referred to her victims as her teacher pets. She had victimized more children. After I checked everything and gathered my information, I flooded her neighborhood with posts in her private FB groups about how much she loved the feeling of power when she pinned the little babies to the desk in her office. The postcards had her face, address, phone number, and more. It's not really a dark secret because if I get caught, so what? I discovered a loud and proud cub hunter. Edit. Since I can't answer each one individually, I'm going to post it here. 1. Yes, I reported her and the group on FB. The group no longer exists and hasn't since I did. 2. I am now 30, and this revenge happened 7 years ago. 3. She moved shortly after I did, but I can't say it was my actions. 4. I didn't continue to follow up with her because my mental health takes priority, and the actions I took then to retaliate actually caused a small relapse of my depression. 5. I reported her when I was 10 and again when I found her living in the same town when I was 25. Group chat logs, Facebook posts, and all information was emailed to the local police. As far as I know, nothing has been done about it. 6. I didn't deprive her or physically harm her because I have a life, and while it's not that great, it's a lot better than prison. Story 35. My only child, who is 23 years old, is schizophrenic. He was diagnosed a year and a half ago. He's at a point where he's stabilized, but because he's stabilized, he understands the road ahead of him, and of course it's devastating. I am no longer married to his father, but we interact very well and rally around him as much as we can. With all of that said, if my son had followed through on his idea of going to heaven, my dark secret is that I completely understand because he would be free of his pain, and even though it would completely destroy us both, he would be more at peace than now. This child is my life and my light. But I don't know if medication or his parents or his environment can give him peace. And that's the worst feeling you can have as a parent. Story 36. 2 days before my dad took his own life, he called me and told me what he wanted to do. He called me and told me how depressed he was for months, and it hurt me to hear it. And I'm up to heaven up on my heavenly father. Then he quit on my 17th birthday. Everyone in the family thinks he died on my birthday by accident, but I know the real reason. I never told any of my family members because I know they would blame me, especially my brother. Ever since he took his own life, I've had a constant nightmare of seeing my dad in the grocery store walking across the aisle. He pushes the empty shopping cart and glances at me briefly across the aisle, but continues walking. When I run to where he is now at the other end of the aisle. Rinse and repeat until you wake up screaming. Some mysteries will haunt you until you die. Story 37. After my parents divorced, my stepfather actually moved in with me and started abusing me. I knew deep down that it wasn't true, but I figured that since he was an adult, he knew what he was doing and I trusted him. One night my sister caught him in the act, freaked out and told my mom about it. The cops came and detained him. I was only 9, 10 years old, so a lot of it is a blur. At first, my mom would make me sleep in bed with her at night, and I was a kid, and I loved it. One day, a few months later, we were walking home from school and saw Dad's van near our house. They didn't let us in, and we saw garbage bags outside. My dad told us that my mom called him earlier in the week and told him that if he didn't come and get us, she was going to get rid of us. She didn't want to come out and talk to us, and I cried. My dad lived out of state, so that meant we would have to leave our friends and hometown behind. Our friends ran after the van as we drove. She didn't talk to us for a few years because she let my stepfather come back, and that's why she stayed away. It seems she didn't want to meet us after what she did. She chose a man who abused her child over her own children. Later, we had a relationship with her again, but she was very sick. The funniest thing is that she holds a very high position in one of the largest banks in America. Professional people consider it excellent. She is a monster. I finally worked up the courage to go out with her when I started recovering from my candy addiction 11 years ago and haven't spoken to her since. A few people know this story, but not many, and it was a pleasure to share it with the world. My life flourished after I cut her off. People always say how much I need my mom. LOL. Don't be afraid to cut your family out of your life just because they are family. Thanks for letting me share this, Reddit. Edit. First of all, thank you all so much for the love and support, awards, and messages. I thought it would be buried in the mail, and then I heard my phone go crazy. Lol, thank you. Some clarification. The garbage bags are the clothes that my mother collected for us. Each of my brothers had a bag full of clothes, nothing else. My father was poor. We had almost no running water and lived in a small log cabin in the countryside in northern Pennsylvania, USA. He struggled with alcoholism for years and was angry, resentful, and ashamed for not divorcing my stepfather. Also for not saving us earlier. The women he was with left him when he got custody of us, and he almost died from it. He got pneumonia, and we had to help him. At first, I was hugged a few years ago that we were very poor and the children were poor. Eventually, I started fighting back and then started fighting a lot. It was a way of being in control. And in my traumatized adolescent mind, if people were afraid of, I would never get hurt again. My addiction was a result of my lack of coping skills and unwillingness to feel self-loathing and shame. I ended up in prison in 2011, and that started my recovery. I didn't talk to my dad for almost 10 years, and then I reconciled with him in 2018, and he was sober, and in that time we became closer than ever. I cherish the time I spent with him. Sadly, he died very unexpectedly after hitting his head in January 2021. Story 38. My mother is a monster who started attacking all her children from the moment we were born. It's not a secret. The secret is that I will spend the rest of my life making absolutely sure that she suffers the consequences for it. Now she thinks she won. It is necessary. She saved herself from criminal charges by throwing money at a fraudulent lawyer. She is smug. This is great, because very soon I will have everything to leave this country. And as soon as there is an international border between us, I will legally pursue her with every breath in my body. I've been collecting evidence and I just found a new smoking gun. Now I have strong evidence. I will make sure she never has access to children again. So I hope she is enjoying the calm before the storm. Edit. I've been looking at these comments in shock for the last 24 hours because I'm completely new to support around this. It's been mostly the opposite. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm especially impressed that people compliment my writing because my sister and I are writing a television series about how we survived our mother. Thank you again. It's hard to express how much this support touched us both. We are in the final stages of fixing up the RV to go to Canada. Once there, we'll reveal everything we know. We'll be sure to post an update when that happens. Story 39. When I was very little, early 2000s, my sister's friend had this big Pikachu plush that she really liked. One day, we were at an event at our school, and for some reason I took a Pikachu and hid it in a filing cabinet in a random classroom. As my family and I were walking, I saw her frantically asking her mom where her Pikachu went, but I didn't say anything. To this day, I still feel absolutely terrible, and I almost want to find this girl I haven't spoken to in years and apologize for what I did. Story 40. My finances don't add up. I don't make enough money to live on. 95% of my earnings go to bills. And no, I haven't bought anything. Just standard bills, flat electricity, phone, internet, CSN, student loan. I might lose my apartment soon, and none of my acquaintances know about it. Edit. I misspelled lose with loose, and still no one said any. Fix now. Edit 2. Since so many people replied to me yesterday, I wanted to come with an update. Update. I was at a meeting with the local authority today, and it looks like I'll be holding on to my flat while I sort out a few things I've already started doing. So it's looking brighter than yesterday, but it's going to be a tough winter, as it is for many people this year. Story 41. When I was a minor, I used to pee on chat sites. I also posted stuff on Tumblr when it was big, also in the minors. I never realized I was posting a CP of myself and feed sick predators on the internet. I had the sense not to use my face for most of it. I'm sure my face is in there somewhere. I shudder to think about it. I told one therapist, but stopped seeing her before we could dive into it. Story 42. Sometimes I can clearly see a truck crashing into me in my head while I'm driving. Then the voice in my head says that would be good. Yes, I went to therapy. They found nothing wrong, no signs of depression, etc. But it was something that haunted me for years. This and the thought that if there is a fire, I won't even try to get out. On paper, I love my perfect life. I'm grateful for that. Do I want more of this? There is none. Story 43. I feel guilty about someone's death. Here's a story. A few years ago, I worked as a doorman at a bar pub. An older man in a clear state of alcohol intoxication tried to enter the establishment. Because of his drunken state, I turned him away. He got into a fight nearby and died as a result. I feel like he would be alive if I let him into our bar. It's a guilt I still carry and few people know about it. Story 44. Many years ago, a candy seller I knew asked me to hold a bag of money. The guy was downright bad news, selling candy and coke. He was awaiting trial for his third offense, and they were preparing to put him in jail for a while. Anyway, he figured he could trust me with the money since I wasn't in the game, and he was right. So I said no problem, and he handed me a money bag with $125,000 bills in it. It wasn't what you might think. It was all wrapped in rubber bands and was only about 5 or 6 inches thick. About every week he asked me to peel off 5,000, meet him somewhere and hand them over. This went on for months. Finally, when he was down to the last 10K, he was caught selling foreclosures, and this time he didn't get out. He had a girlfriend who kept calling me asking for the rest of the money, but I just blew her off. I knew so that she just wheezed or the rest of the money. As a result, they gave him 20 years in prison. A month after the verdict, he himself died. I kept that 10K and didn't tell anyone. Story 45. It's not really a dark secret, just sad. I live in a small town where more or less everyone knows everyone or has some kind of connection with them. I have family and friends, some best, some close, some good, and some acquaintances. Lately, it seems to me that everyone has forgotten about me or is just tired of me. They no longer involve me in large or minor gatherings, outings, or events. We used to have a group chat, but ever since me and one person in the group got into a fight, it just wasn't the same. I mean, I reached out and tried to fix it, but it just wasn't the same. I feel lonely and depressed, and seeing everyone happy makes it even worse. Most of the time, I'm alone. They sometimes post about their gatherings, and I know they sometimes hide it from me. I know because I have a private account that we follow each other, but they haven't hidden their posts from that account. No, I know why. This just sucks because I thought they were my friends, so why do they have to keep it from me? I want to disappear. When I have the money or the opportunity, I think about downsizing, leaving everything behind and starting from scratch somewhere else where no one knows me. At least there I will be free. Sorry for my bad English. I'm not good with these things. Story 46. No one is going to read this comment, but I think typing it will help me intellectually. My husband died in a pretty horrific car accident in 2016. He was 32 and I was 30. We weren't even married for 2 years and it was absolutely devastating, but we got married in a hurry, and the short time we spent together was, to say the least, a bit stormy. I spent most of my 20s as a single mom, barely making above minimum wage. Last year I graduated with a BA with honors. I moved to a brand new state with a very comfortable job. I make 3 times what I did in the highest paying job I ever had before. I really like it, and I like that I can do whatever I want and go wherever I want with my baby. This is something I could only dream of 6, 7 years ago. I wouldn't be here if he hadn't been in that accident. I would still be doing menial jobs or being a stay-at-home mom. I feel like I have to start my life with a clean slate, and it's actually going really well. The main thing is that I am now working in the position and in the field that he hoped to become one day. I'm not thankful he's dead, but I don't miss him like I think I should. Story 47. I know an ex-friend who steals money from strangers on the internet who they have convinced they have multiple health issues. I am convinced they are a sociopath and or have Munchausen syndrome. That's why they're ex-friends of mine, and they have no idea what I know, but I'm waiting for them to steal enough money so I can tell the FBI and let them deal with them. Call me petty, but they deserve it for preying on good people who just want to help. Story 48. First, I am not a danger to myself or others, and that will not change. But other than that, I feel completely ready for life. I have had chronic pain for almost 4 years now, severe sciatica, and I'm quite disabled so I can't work, but I'm not disabled enough to have access to any help other than what provincial healthcare covers. Being from the US, I am well aware of the importance of healthcare that doesn't bankrupt me. I love my wife and daughters. I want to be there for their milestones, their good days, their bad days, and really every day. I still manage to do most of the shopping and cooking, and I enjoy feeding them delicious meals. But I have no desire except to be a burden to them. This is my goal, to improve their lives as much as I can. Over the past few years, I have slowly let go of any desire or ambition. I can't bring myself to read books. In many cases, I can't even watch movies or TV shows that are new to me. I admit to wanting to look at them, but I usually can't bring myself to do it. I have to pay attention, and it's so hard. Today, it is not so easy to find the willpower to really focus on something. That's why I usually review what I've already seen, or listening to the same bands and songs I've been listening to for years. Sometimes I treat myself to something new, but in the evenings, my wife and I usually watch something new together. I focus on the time to enjoy my time with her. The rest of the day, I just exist. It would hurt if she knew how I felt. If there was a solution, I would take it. But everything that can be done is done. My condition is degenerative, so it will only get worse. But I still have time, and I intend to use that time to make sure I'm a net asset to the household and not just a drain. It's bad enough that I haven't been able to get a paycheck for years, but I can still help, and I do. Story 49. I have a son. No one knows, except me and my mother. Mother was really a very good friend who was a bit of a homebody and had never been in love. She was in her early 40 AS. She always wanted a husband and a child, but at that moment she decided that if she couldn't find a husband, she would have a child. After $12,000, she gets artificial insemination with a whopping 12% chance of success. Well, it doesn't have to, and she's on a teacher's salary, and her dream of children and marriage fades away, and especially with a baby, time is of the essence. So I stepped up. We discussed everything and decided that she was artificially inseminated and does not know the father. We contacted a lawyer and paid a small amount to remove the liability from me. To this day, I see it as if I donated to the bank and someone used my money. That would be $12,000 for each try, and with this method, she could try as many times as needed. Fortunately, it only took a few tries. We waited until she ovulated, and I donated. So, formally I have a son, but everyone thinks I'm childless. Story 50. I feel lost and alone, even though I am surrounded by friends. The fact that I've been single most of my life, and the older I get, the less confident I am that this will ever happen. Some people know, but most don't know this about me and think I'm happy every day, when in reality it's just a facade I built years ago. Edit. I see many touching as well as heartfelt comments. I see you all, and I can't comment on all of you, but I see you and I feel you all. Thanks, and to all of you who need it too. Hang on like I do. You are worth it. Story 51. To be subjected to by someone very close to me. I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on. I felt strange, but I didn't tell anyone. The person is still living their best life. We speak. We both know what happened, but he acts like it never happened. We never talked about it. I don't think I'll ever be able to tell anyone that. If I do that, I will ruin everything. My family will be a mess. Story 52. Not me, but a close friend of mine. She tried one of 23andMe's DNA tests to learn a little more about her genetic predisposition and such. When she got the results, she saw that she had a distant relative who lived in New York. She thought it might be some cousin of someone she had never met. We are both from South Asia, so we have huge families. A few weeks pass and she receives a Facebook friend request from a guy with her last name. He actually DM'd her with a story like, "Hi, I know this is crazy, but I think you could be my stepsister." My friend was instantly frightened and very doubtful of the whole idea of this stranger being a relative. She tries to ghost him, but the guy and his wife try to contact her through all social media, trying to connect. The guy's story is that when my friend's father immigrated from home in the late 80s, he had an affair with a woman in New York. The father must have moved out of state before the boy was born and doesn't even know he exists. The guy is now trying to confirm who the father is, so the 23andMe test. He also provides really specific and accurate information about my friend's father, which led us both to believe that he was actually telling the truth. A few days go by, and I convince my friend to talk privately about the situation with her dad. I don't know the details of that conversation, only that her dad was overwhelmed and moved out of their house for a while. That was a few years ago, and now my friend and her family are fine, but I don't dare bring it up. Story 53. When I was treasurer, I deliberately undermined the finances of the church. Both pastors were making obscene amounts of money for the lack of work they were doing. They misused funds in the amount of $5,000 per month. One pastor refused to follow the board's directive not to give money to certain individuals. None of the board members wanted to be the bad guy. Technically, the pastors were not doing anything illegal. It was morally reprehensible. This was 10 years ago, and anyone not in the know thinks I made some clerical errors that nearly blew up the church. I am still hated by many people.